Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Birdie Golf Club podcast. Sorry, I'm just trying to put a notepad down without making a huge amount of noise, but that just leads to me being distracted and rambling like I am now. But anyway, that's enough about that. This is episode, where are we? Episode 44, I think. 43, 44. And we are right at the cusp of the Ryder Cup. Just get excited, get ready. It's going to be an amazing, amazing few days. You might have remembered from the previous podcast, I'm going to be in Legoland for a day and a half of it, which was poorly planned by me, but nonetheless going to have fun with the family there. But I can't wait for tomorrow. It's Thursday as you're listening to this now, and I can't wait. I can't wait for things to get going. I can't wait to see the build out at Bethpage. Obviously, I've had the pleasure of talking to Dan in the previous podcast, and we were able to talk about just how much work has gone into this Ryder Cup. And obviously from here across the pond, we're not seeing that close at hand. You know, we're just getting ready for that Sky Sports and tuning into it. But credit to everyone involved for setting this up. I've just been able to watch which will be a couple of days ago now, but the sort of pre-tournament press conferences. Keegan Bradley, very meek, very mild in his press conference. Don't know if anyone else sort of noticed that as well, but it was noticeable, and Luke Donald was the more assertive one, which was interesting for those interested in that sort of behavioural sort of psychology, essentially, of what he was achieving there, because that was interesting to watch. And now we've got the mind games starting with Rory talking about Bryson, and Bryson saying he's going to chirp people more than ever like Rory, which is an unusual it's an unusual way of starting chirping. You don't normally announce that you're going to chirp before you chirp, and Bryson isn't necessarily the best chirper in the world either. Either way, balls are going to be in the air very, very soon. And what I thought I would set up as this last podcast on this special week is to talk to somebody who is a proper historian of the game. It's somebody we've spoken to before. That's Dave Klenk. Dave is the very man who creates these wonderful leather scorecard holders and yardage book holders using Italian leather, and it's a fantastic company. If you haven't already, check them out. Unbelievable products. But Dave is also just a proper historian of the game. He knows everything about golf, and I don't. I had a big gap where I didn't watch golf, basically in my 20s. You loved it as a teenager. Golf Channel all summer, but that period from 20 to 30 didn't really sort of take note much of what was going on, and that's, I feel like, you gain the most knowledge, which you then carry with you in that time. So I'm on the late. I'm learning now all these things. And Dave goes back. I mean, Dave takes us all the way back to the very beginning of the Ryder Cup in this conversation, and what happened when it all started. He summarises it beautifully. The transitions between the modern day Ryder Cup and what was before it, where it was obviously GB&I versus USA, and then everything that happened there. Occasionally I chime in with a little factoid, which may or may not be true. Who knows? But nonetheless felt the need to talk sometimes, just to sort of show that I was part of it, because Dave was so knowledgeable, and he's such a great ambassador for the game, really, with how much he loves it. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you gain some information ready to go into the Ryder Cup this weekend. Okay, we'll throw it to the conversation with Dave. How are you, and how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. This is probably my favorite week of the golf calendar. It only comes every 2 years, so you got to savor it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Ryder Cup at Bethpage, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, I've got a busy week, which actually started with some golf today, which was quite unusual.
Nice. How'd you play?
Yeah, I didn't play great. I set myself a bit of a challenge. I wanted to film like a YouTube video, which I'd never done before, like a course vlog, but I kind of wanted to do it in an interesting style, because my golf is not that interesting. So I had a very stripped down set of golf clubs. I had like a mini driver, 6-iron, 8-iron, 52-degree and putter. And then the other half of the bag was some hickory golf clubs. And I played 2 balls and played with the hickory set, and then played with my own sort of stripped down set.
That's fun, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Results, to be honest, I don't even know what I scored. I've got to watch it back and see what happened out there. But it was fun. It was fun. It was fun to play the game. The course where I played, it was kind of one of those courses because it doesn't really have the money or the resources to architecturally change the landscape. So it's more etched onto it. And it's just a 9-hole public golf course, but it kind of, playing with the hickory set kind of like gave you that feeling of, okay, yeah, this is kind of how it was intended to be played originally.
Yeah.
Have you given it a go before? Have you got any hickory clubs available?
Used to. They might have gotten left at my parents' house years ago, but I used to have a handful of them, and I would just kind of go outside and hit balls into the woods. And I remember just feeling it being a different sort of feel of a swing compared to modern equipment, understandably, just with the lightness of the hickory shaft, but then a different sort of weight you're dealing with in the club heads. So I remember it being a bit of an adjustment, but man, when you connected, it felt amazing. Like any golf shot. Yeah. But
I've literally found my favorite club, I think, that I've ever had.
Oh, yeah?
Like, yeah, it's just like, I think it was essentially like a 7 or an 8 iron sort of loft, essentially. But it's an off Forgan and Sons. So Robert Forgan and Sons.
I feel like I recognize that name. Okay, nice.
Yeah, they were based in St Andrews. They sort of were
okay.
renowned for their club making, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, it's got no grooves left on the face, or at least the rust has taken over. There is a solid, right in the sweet spot, what appears to be a bird poo stain, which is part of the club. No grip. And the remains of the old grip is now just a bit of string, which slowly has worked its way down the shaft as the day went on.
Sounds about right.
But that might be my favourite club. I couldn't miss with that thing. I hit it so pure all day. It was
That's
just
awesome,
crazy. It's crazy.
That's so cool. And it reminds me of anytime I read a book about golf history, about the greatest game ever played, Francis Ouimet playing Harry Vardon and Ted Ray in 1913 at Brookline. I have to remind myself that, they're not playing with the equipment I'm playing with. They're hitting all these incredible shots with hickory shafted clubs and, very primitive iron heads that just, you give to any professional today and they would have a tough time adjusting to. And even if they do adjust to it, I think would have a tough time controlling the ball the way they do now. And it just makes the achievements of players from 100 and 150 years ago even more impressive when you remember how primitive the equipment is. It's a good reminder.
It's crazy. I mean, I was using modern day golf ball as well, and I was getting the benefits from that, but just the even the putting, with an old putter, the hickory putter it's a totally different concept. It certainly didn't suit my putting stroke or lack of, essentially. But it's good to be reminded of the roots of things, and obviously we've got this weekend with a competition which has some pretty incredible roots. I mean, I know, Dave, you're a historian of the game, and you'll be far better versed, I think, to take us on a little journey of the Ryder Cup. So I'm going to let you take it away, and I'm going to chime in, here and there.
I appreciate it. Thank you, and again, thank you for having me back on, man. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And
absolutely,
as I mentioned, sort of this is my favorite week of the golfing calendar, and specifically Ryder Cup singles Sunday is my favorite day of the Ryder Cup, even better than Masters Sunday. Masters Sunday is number 2 for me, but there is just something so special about the drama that unfolds on Ryder Cup singles Sunday. But before we even get to the drama of it, in fact, I was thinking about this yesterday and today of sort of the overall history of the match. We're about at the 100-year mark almost, and I think you can think of the Ryder Cup in sort of 3 different phases. There was the first sort of 50 years so the first one was at Worcester Country Club in 1927. There had been a match in 1926 that was sort of an informal predecessor match, and that was in the UK. And I forget at what course, but actually the UK team just demolished the American team. I think it was 13-1, and they thought, okay, I think they wanted to get have a rematch of some kind, and that rematch in 1927 became the first official Ryder Cup with Samuel Ryder actually donating the trophy and everything. So that predecessor match gave birth to the first one in 1927. And for the next, I think, 50 years, I think till 1977, or no, 1973, it was just Great Britain versus the US. And throughout pre-World War II, it was actually pretty even. It was, usually the UK, the Great Britain team would win when it was over there. The US team would win when it was stateside. And they kind of went back and forth. Post World War II, it became just a US domination. And so in 1973, 75, and 77, they expanded into what you can think of as sort of like the second sort of quick middle phase. Those 3 years is when they invited the Irish players to come in as to sort of fortify the ranks. Still, those three were pretty lopsided. And they then finally in 1979, they were like, okay, we got to go all of Europe. We have to. And rightfully so. Like I if you look back to what players like Hogan and Snead and Nelson back in the 40s and 50s, and then even Arnold Palmer and Nicklaus in the 60s, the Ryder Cup was an afterthought. It was not a big thing on the calendar for fans, and it really was not that big of an event on the calendar for players. They liked playing in it, but almost as sort of a end of season,
Exhibition.
Exactly. And there was certainly some spirited matches, but I think it wasn't until the late 70s that both sides kind of came together and said, like, we need to either figure this out and make it competitive for us as players and more engaging for the fans, or do we just, let it, continue to become boring, or do we let it slip away? And very rightfully so, in 1979, you can say we entered the third and most modern Ryder Cup phase, when it was the US versus all of Europe. And that was one of the best decisions that anyone in the golf administration world has made, certainly on the international stage. And I think they saw the writing on the wall, not just with how uncompetitive it had been, but how incredible the talent from mainland Europe was, with Seve and a lot of the other Spanish players coming up, and German players like Bernhard Langer in the 80s. And I think it made so much sense. And now we look at it and we think, why was it never always this way? I think think of all the years that could have been so much more competitive in the 50s, 60s, and 70s if they'd done it sooner. But either way, I think you can look back to 79 as being the first true modern Ryder Cup, and then the rivalry really began, I think, in 85 when the Europeans won for the first time. And that was when it really started to be taken more seriously by some of the players, especially the Americans, who probably were on autopilot after a little while of, kind of showing up, having fun, usually collecting the trophy. And that's when it really started to heat up. And then, you get into the 90s, 1991 at Kiowa, 1999 at Brookline. It's just reaching a fever pitch. And then into the 2000s, it's become on par with sort of the majors in terms of fan interest, I think. And just looking back over the 2000s and 2010s, it's just taken on a life of its own in terms of fan interest, sponsor interest, the dollars that have been, funneled into it. And it's now an international spectacle. It's arguably like the Super Bowl of golf, in a way that like the Masters and Open and British Open and PGA kind of aren't. They each kind of, everyone always kind of decides which of the four majors is their favorite, but everyone loves the Ryder Cup. Like no one really dunks on the Ryder Cup anymore. Yeah, that's kind of, for any listeners who are trying to like understand the importance of the event today, I think you can think of the history of it in those three phases. And it's certainly, I think, the most fun to look at the last 40 years or so, when it really truly has become the US-European rivalry. And we can dive into some of the, our favorite moments from the last, few decades if we want, or dive into any of those. But that's, if you're looking back over the 100-year history, the last 40 years is kind of the modern age, and I think the most exciting, most fun age. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's brilliantly summed up, Dave. And how close it came. Like many things now that we look at that are, eclipse the sport. Become bigger than golf itself. But at times, I mean, it nearly didn't survive. Several times the Ryder Cup. I mean, I know from a Europe standpoint, there was a point, I think it was in the 70s, where sponsorship essentially became non-existent for it, and they had to try and find sponsorship. I mean, now you look at that and they're probably pushing sponsors away. Like, no, we've got enough. We're good. We're good.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about how much events have changed, and what now we see as just an immutable, immortal event like the Ryder Cup was ever in that much trouble of not making it. But you can see that in other events too. The early days of the Masters tournament, the Masters for the first 20, 30 years was not financially, profitable, and the club itself was going through a lot of tough times early on. We laugh about that now. Who could ever have imagined a world without Augusta
Mm.
National, a world without Masters? But PGA Tour events come and go all the time. There's always tough decisions that need to be made, no matter the tour you're looking at. And it's, man, thank goodness for all of us that we still have this event to unite us and increase this rivalry every 2 years. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's Samuel Ryder. I mean, the guy who started it is sort
Yeah,
of, you know, was nobody really in
yeah.
the game of golf, was he? You
Yeah,
know,
it was a merchant of some kind. I always forget. I think a seed merchant.
yeah, I think
But
you're right, Seed
like,
Merchant. Yeah,
yeah, like so many, you see a lot. I've got a little bit of my golf book collection behind me, but you read about golf, certainly in the U.S. in the late 1800s, early 1900s, sort of the golden age, 1900 to 1930 of golf course architecture and all those famous clubs like Wingfoot and Shinnecock and all those in the greater New York, Boston, Philadelphia corridor. And so many of those clubs have a similar history in that there was a wealthy industrialist who had made a ton of money, who wanted a way to exercise and discovered this kooky game called golf that the Scots had brought over and some Englishmen had brought over from the UK in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And they fall in love with it and they pour their fortune into it to either create a club or to create a trophy or an event. And Samuel Ryder is one of those characters just like that, who just took up the game very late in life and got bit by the same bug you and I did. And now the event is, 98 years old and going strong. It's incredible.
yeah, never been in better shape, really, has it? When you consider the game of golf itself, how popular the game of golf has even become post Tiger era, which everyone was scared of.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? And now you look at it and you got kids taking up the game that have shown no interest in it before. It's suddenly cool. You've got your goods and you've got all these people sort of taking it, playing all sorts of different games out on the course. And, some people
Yeah.
love it, some people hate it. But at the end of the day, you can't complain when driving ranges are full and,
Yeah.
tee sheets are full as well, which can only be a good thing for the game.
It's so true. And I think the Ryder Cup is at the forefront of spreading the love of the game and love of competition. I know you smoked my friend Dan Frankel. I was just listening to your guys' episode earlier today, and he talked a lot about just the importance of growing the game, and certainly the PGA of America is a huge force for that. On this side of the pond, and I think just the Ryder Cup is like this sort of crown jewel of it is still it's an exhibition where you're playing for your country and your continent and for your teammates and the fans cheering on, and it has an aura and an energy unlike any of the four majors or the players or any of the other marquee PGA Tour events where every individual player is rightfully so out for themselves. This is just this one time every 2 years we get to just celebrate patriotism and team unity, and I do think that does go a long way in getting younger players and younger kids into the game who usually follow a lot of team sports. Golf and tennis are really the main two individual sports, and unless you really are exposed to it early, you might not cheer for any one player. But you watch this event called the Ryder Cup, and suddenly you're exposed to 12 teammates on whether it's Europe or the U.S., and boom, you got a team to root for. And it's I think it's a great gateway into the game for a lot of young people for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You were talking before, because I've sort of been in and out of the game up until this point, up until about sort of 4 years ago, where I've really sort of just got fully back in with golf.
Nice.
And I've got snippets of memories of Ryder Cups, but obviously when you're not in the game as much, you don't take on as much. I mean, obviously Medina sort of was at a point where it sort of pushed past even golf itself and everyone was tuning in just to see what was going on, and it was
Yeah.
crazy. And then obviously you've got, we don't talk about the whitewash, the Whistling Straits. We don't need to
It's all right. We don't,
don't need
we
to
don't
really get into that
even I
one.
thought it was boring. I was disappointed that it wasn't closer. Trust me, I was watching Medina in 2016 and I was disappointed, but I was like, this is incredible. This is an incredible moment for the Euros and for the Ryder Cup itself. This is only going to elevate it. So I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was just a crazy, crazy moment. And then obviously looking at Rome, most
Yeah.
recent memory for everyone, and it
Yeah.
was a little bit in the other direction where it kind of that first day sort of whitewash and then it was just chasing from there. And you kind of, even though Sunday there was a lot of red on the board at one point and there was a
Yeah.
little bit of a worry
Yeah.
for sure, it kind of also never felt like it was kind of an unassailable lead at that moment as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're looking for at Bethpage. I think all golfing fans, you're going to want either Team Europe or Team USA to win.
Yeah.
But for the spectacle, for where it
Yeah.
is in New York at Bethpage,
Oh, man.
just go down to the last few matches. That's all we're asking for.
Yeah.
Let's make it as tight as possible. Have you got any particular memories, like you said, that span the last sort of few decades,
Yeah.
and maybe ones that were close like that as well, that people could maybe look back on as well, Dave?
For sure. So I completely agree with you, by the way. I want my team to win, you want your team to win, but more than anything, I want Sunday to be exciting. I don't want like a 5-point lead by either team. Like if it's going into Saturday night, if there's a 2-point or less differential, I will be so excited, no matter who's up or down. I just think it adds so much drama when you have 12 matches on the board on Sunday and it could go either way, like you said, all the way to the final 3 matches. When it's washed out and there's still 5, 6 matches on the grounds, like no one wants. Some people want that. I don't, but I prefer a close match. But to your question, I think the best example of that is 1991 at Kiowa in South
Mhm.
Carolina. They dubbed it "The War by the Shore." In fact, there's a book called "The War by the Shore." I can't remember the author, but I recommend all of your listeners check that book out. Probably won't be able to finish it before this weekend, but check it out at some point if you want a really in-depth look into sort of the history of the Ryder Cup that I went over, but an in-depth look of when things kind of turned and when the modern Ryder Cup became the Ryder Cup. Like I said, like 79 Europe got involved, 85 was the first European win, 91 at Kiowa is when the rivalry started. That is when the players got feisty with each other. That
Mhm.
was when like Seve and Paul Azinger were like nose to nose in some arguments at one point. There was some allegations of a ball being switched out and allegations of Seve doing his usual gamesmanship. There was a lot of high tension throughout those 3 days. And it came down on Sunday, as we were kind of saying, super close in singles all the way to the final match. And I don't know if we've had a match, a Ryder Cup like this since 91, Dave, where not only did it come down to the final match, it came down to the 18th green in the final match, and it came down to the final putt on the 18th green in the final match.
Now
And
we're talking.
it was poor Bernhard Langer, who, you and I have talked about before, we both love and respect, had a 6-footer. And the way the points all worked out was it was all or nothing. Either you make this and you win your match, or you have your match and tie and retain the cup for Europe, or you miss the putt, lose the match, lose the cup. There was no in between. And which is also just the genius of the way the point system is set up in the Ryder Cup, where it can come down to that. And he goes into it in the book. He hit the putt exactly the speed and line he wanted to. It just didn't make that last turn. Stayed out, and the Euros lost and the Americans won. And it just he said it stayed with him throughout his career, missing that putt. I'm not saying that it haunted him, but it is probably the putt he thought about the most, that he wished he could have had back. And all the Americans were shared in their feeling of just utter relief and anxiety. They all said they've never felt tension like that on the golf course, and I'm sure the European team had an equal amount of frustration and sadness for losing, especially coming down to that final hole in that final match. But one other sort of anecdote from that Ryder Cup that I think drives the point home of how much this meant to those guys. Mark Calcavecchia, the American, was playing Colin Montgomery in singles. And because of how close everything was, everyone knew how important every point was on the board. Calcavecchia goes out and just waxes Montgomery on the front nine and is just in complete control of his game. Colin is not playing well, and Calc gets him up 4 up with 4 to go. And he's like, all right, I'm going to secure my point and we're going to be good to go. And I think that's actually going to be the push we need to get over the hump. Calcavecchia loses his focus. He loses 15. He loses 16. On 17, he dumps his ball in the water, and he thinks, "My goodness, I've blown it." Montgomery stumbles as well, and eventually they're on the 17th green, and all Calcavecchia has to do is make a 2-footer, and he wins the match right there. Misses the 2-footer. The ball doesn't even sniff the hole, and he's in full meltdown mode. 18, he's out of sorts, loses 18 as well, and halves the match. So Montgomery comes back with 4 holes to go, wins all 4 to salvage a half. Calcavecchia said it was the most despondent and just it was like an out of body experience where he basically had a breakdown. He didn't talk to anyone. He, shook hands, literally walked onto the beach at Kiowa alone with his thoughts and just started weeping. And he just sat there and started weeping because of how he thought he'd lost it, not just for himself, but for his whole team. And then you fast forward an hour or two when it all came down to it and Longer missed that putt. The U.S. ended up winning 14.5, 13.5. And so Dave Stockton, the captain, went up to Calcavecchia to console him. And Calc is like, I'm sorry. He said, no, you don't understand. Your half point is what won it. You did it. If we hadn't had that, we would have tied, and the Europeans won 2 years ago, so they would have retained the cup. And he said he went from just feeling like he'd let his whole country down to having a little bit of, joy and happiness, and eventually he was out there celebrating. But to go from just the high of thinking I'm about to beat one of the best Europeans in the world to devastation and weeping by yourself on a beach at the Ryder Cup to then celebrating with the team. I mean, if that just one experience doesn't tell you everything about the Ryder Cup, then nothing else will. So that's one of the memories I talk about, and I encourage people to read that book, War by the Shore. It's that times 100. It is such a great retrospective on that whole event. Yeah.
Awesome. There's a something for everyone to try and find in this week building up, because that's what everyone does this week building up. Everyone tries to grab every little bit of information, whether it be press conferences, whether it be players practicing, trying to find out what their sleep schedule is going to be like for this week, the dinners beforehand and everything like that. Right. I think that's where the Ryder Cup for me sort of becomes this whole other thing as well, because it felt this way in Rome, where when Luke Donald got up there, and I felt so sorry for Zach Johnson, because he gives his speech, which was absolutely fine, like an ideal captain speech. Done it well, away from home, brilliant. And then Luke Donald gets up there and suddenly is fluent in Italian, just brings the house down, at that moment. And that whole opening ceremony and what it adds to the tournament is very unique, isn't it? Because we have the Masters, where we get sort of Fred Ridley's sort of monologue that he does, and then you get obviously the honorary starters as well that will play. But that whole sort of showmanship of bringing the players out, and everyone's suited and booted, I could only really relate it to like the weigh-ins at boxing, that sort of sort of thing. And it's very unique and very interesting with the Ryder Cup that it's sort of, has it always been, and I know it's not going to be always, but how long can you remember, or do you know that there's been this sort of big opening ceremony as part of the show?
I think the pageantry certainly didn't start until that most recent modern phase, but probably it was still probably pretty understated in the 80s. I would say it was probably not until the late 90s that the true extent of the pageantry began, and I agree with you. I think it's such a fun part of what makes the event so special. It's only 3 days of playing, but it feels like a week or more of build up with practice rounds and now all these other events that are going around with it, and player dinners and the wives and the players getting together for these gala balls and everything. It's become such a world unto its own. I think that certainly has started the last 25 years or so. But the idea of like a champions, or just a players dinner beforehand, that goes back to the 50s for sure. Right. I remember one anecdote that you will not love, but I think is very funny, of when Ben Hogan was a captain. So that would have been probably late 50s or maybe even early 60s. And there was a dinner, and I think it was in the UK. It was at UK Ryder Cup, and it was the night before, and all the players, and this may have been back when the wives might not even have made the trip. This might have just been the players and press and some officials. and the captains would come out and they would then introduce the players into the dinner, and the the UK, or the Great Britain captain announced his first, and he did them one by one. He would announce like so and so from England, and they would walk out. So and so from Ireland, and they would walk out one by one. And then they were all seated there. And then Ben Hogan stood up and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the 12 greatest players in the world." And he just sat down, and and the Americans just stood up and said hello. And apparently the Great Britain captain did not take too kindly to that. So even someone as icy as Hogan had a little bit of gamesmanship in him at the Ryder Cup. And yeah, that goes back. That was 75, probably years ago, give or take. So certainly the gamesmanship goes back a long way.
Yeah, because I guess that's the part we see the open and the public side of things of, those opening ceremony and the speeches and the players wave and all that sort of part of it. What we don't see is that behind closed doors, the dinner.
Yeah.
It would be interesting just to, I think it should stay something that's behind closed door. I know media will want to get in there as quickly as they possibly can, but I think there is something special to making sure that some things stay in-house and you find out about them 10 years later.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have stories like that, that just wouldn't exist because people wouldn't say things because they'd be worried about it getting out the next day and whatever it may be.
Exactly, yeah. It used to be a little bit more buttoned up, but now now everyone wants behind-the-scenes access all the time, which takes a little bit of the magic away from it. I agree. I think it's better to leave some things unsaid or unreleased to the public.
Yeah, I also don't want players interviewed as they're going along around the course during their matches.
I agree.
Can we stop that?
I have seen that this past year out of tour events, and I'm like, I'm not sure who asked for this, but as a viewer, I don't need this at all. I don't need to be distracting these guys while they're in the middle of their very competitive rounds of golf.
Yeah, I don't gain anything from it. I know the guy's locked in. He's just going to give pretty generic answers. The best guys to interview would be the guys who are having an absolute shocker and who are nowhere near the lead. Yeah. You're going to get super honest answers.
Yeah, and they probably don't want to talk. Oh man, I would love to see Tyrrell Hatton in that. I want to hear the expletives coming out of his mouth at a time like that.
Well, I heard his most recent one, which is when he found out that he'd made the team.
Oh I heard about
it. John Rahm went on this complete bender. Basically, ended up having to leave money for the staff at the hotel because he'd let himself down a little bit. It was crazy.
Sounds about right.
Obviously, we're going to New York, and it's a place you know well.
Yeah.
I know I asked Dan about this, of what it means to the New York area, but as somebody that knows it so well, anything you'd like to add of what this means to New York to have the Ryder Cup?
Yeah, I'll echo some of what he said. I think there is a buzz about this event that is different from past golf majors that have been played. Bethpage has hosted 2 U.S. Opens and a PGA Championship and a number of FedEx Cup playoff events. And when the U.S. Open came to Bethpage in 2002, that was a momentous event for sure. That's one of the most important sort of advances in modern golf, was the USGA having the guts to go to a truly municipal, public-owned golf course and hosting the crown jewel event of theirs there. So that was a huge buzz to go to Bethpage in 2002. But you got to remember, the area in general has hosted the U.S. Open at Winged Foot, and Shinnecock is way out at the east end of Long Island, but that's still, a New York crowd going out for that. The PGA Championship has been at Baltusrol in northern New Jersey, which is within, 30-minute drive of New York City. There have been, just a lot of big golf tournaments in the area for sure, but to have a Ryder Cup, I think there's only been one previous Ryder Cup in the Met area, and it was in the late '80s at Ridgewood, I believe, in New Jersey. But again, it's just a completely different world that was. So this does feel like it's the first time that the greater New York area is getting this event, and so there is a palpable excitement for sure. And the fact that it is at Bethpage, which again, to echo what Dan said, it is the People's Country Club. There is so much pride in that club. In not just in Long Island, but New York City, Westchester, Hudson River Valley, Northern Jersey, even where I'm from in Southern Connecticut, just that whole tri-state New York City area. Everyone who plays golf knows Bethpage. They know that it's this little incredible sort of public oasis in Long Island, a 20-30 minute train from New York City, and it shouldn't exist, but it does. And so the fact that it does, like everyone is just so proud of it. Even if you've, grown up and you belong to a private club now, if you grew up as a public player in the area, it holds a special place for everyone. So it's sort of this unifying place in the golf scene in New York City, in the greater Met area. So there's really no other course like it. So I think that is what is driving so much of the excitement. And whether you're going in person or you're enjoying from home like I am, everyone is talking about it. Everyone is excited. Like I said before, all I just hope is that it's close and that it's competitive. I hope we get the payoff that we're all excited for.
Yeah, exactly. And I said to Dan as well, maybe, I expected him to, of course, say that it's going to be, to be fair to him, he actually just said the words, "It's a beast and anything can happen."
Yeah.
Would you say that with Bethpage, because obviously we're going from, Marcus Simone, where not a world-renowned golf course, not a particularly difficult golf course, but was really good for match play scenario, driving greens, some interesting layouts. Do you think Bethpage is going to deliver on the drama front?
I think so. I think, the PGA of America, which runs the Ryder Cup on our side, they know that this is not a PGA Championship. They know it's not a U.S. Open, and that you cannot set up a course the same way. The guys, Kerry Haig is the tournament director at the PGA of America, so he sets up the Ryder Cup and the PGA of America and the PGA Championship. He certainly does not set them up the same way. Can't speak in too much detail to what his methodology is, but he's a smart guy that's been doing this for many years, and I think he knows what the Ryder Cup demands in terms of match play, competition versus stroke play. I think he's going to set, the rough is not going to be the way it was in 2002 and 2009 for the U.S. Open. The greens might be, a little different speed. I think the most fun that they'll be able to have is where the tee boxes are to give us those drivable par fours or to give us those risk reward shots over certain fairway bunkers. I was just reading yesterday that there are certain, pretty penal fairway bunkers that Rory and Bryson can easily sky it over. That's not even on their radar. But there's a good chunk of both teams that actually have to contend with them. So I think the PGA of America is certainly smart enough to know how to set the course up to challenge the Rorys on the team versus the shorter hitters or the more strategic, safer hitters. So I certainly think they are going to set it up in a way that delivers on the drama.
A quick pause to the episode to tell you about today's sponsor, and it's something every golfer should have, Solex. Here's the deal. We all know that we should reapply sunscreen during a round, but who actually wants greasy hands on their clubs? I don't. You don't either. Solex fixes that. It's a sun cream with a built-in applicator, so you can protect your skin without messing up your grip. Just roll it on in between shots, no fuss, no excuses. And it's not just about convenience. Solex partners with the Melanoma Fund, helping raise awareness and fight skin cancer. So you're not only protecting your game, you're protecting yourself for the long term. Here's something special for you. Use code BirdieGolf15 at checkout on solex.live and you'll get 15% off your order. That's BirdieGolf15 for 15% off. So next time you're heading out for 18 holes, don't just pack your tees and balls, pack Solex too. Protect your skin, protect your swing. Now, back to the podcast.
I think it's the beauty of match play is that, one bad hole, you can just toss it aside and go on to the next one and make birdie after you've made a double. Like, I think that's just what's so exciting about match play. You're never really out of it until the end. So I think, I trust the PGA of America for sure to deliver on the drama side and on the course setup side. I would be very disappointed if they set it up like a U.S. Open and ended up just being a bloodbath. No one wants to. No one wants to see any matches win holes on bogeys and double bogeys. Like, we want to see some bogeys, we want to see some good par saves, and I think they'll deliver on that. Yeah,
just an absolute bogey fest of a.
Yeah, no one just. Come on, like they know what they're
fist
doing.
Fist pump on a double.
Great double, Xander. Like, yeah, no one wants that. No one wants that. So, yeah, I think it's going to be great. I think the course has enough variety just instilled in its design. It's a Tillinghast design. It's the same architect as Wingfoot and Baltusrol, any I think Golden Age architects and Golden Age course like that, can be set up for either match play or stroke play, and I have no doubt the PGA of America will deliver on the match play side. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good to hear. That's all I need to
Yeah.
hear. That's wonderful. I've had 2 people
Yeah.
confirm it now, so
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm
If
good.
I'm wrong, you know who to blame. If it ends up being a complete bloodbath, you know who to blame.
Just an Oakmont out there just becomes
Yeah.
just
No one.
toughs.
Yeah.
Well, JJ Spawn will be all right, to be fair. So that would
Yeah.
be
Yeah. Let's see how he knows out there. I think it'll be more of an easier play than Oakmont for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we look at the teams as well now, because when you look at them, I would say that they've never been closer in terms of characteristics.
Yeah.
Because, like we were saying before, when it was GB&I versus USA, and early days of Europe v USA, there was this gulf, for a good term. There was a gulf in the way they played the game.
Yeah.
As well, it was
For
just Europe were known for being, very, accurate, but not
Mm-hmm.
long, and
Mm-hmm.
US were known for being long hitters that would
Yep.
just get the job done, and
Yeah.
definitely, and still the case now, when it comes to singles, you always favour the US in that because of the way you're brought up playing golf. It's more of an individual sport in America
Yeah.
from a young age. But looking at the teams, and obviously you could kind of see this happening when we were at Marcus Simone. You could kind of see that there was more of a case of they were trying to set the shape of holes being more important than actually necessarily the distance of those holes. Would you say that there's probably never been maybe a better Europe team on paper to tackle the challenges that Bethpage has? We know that the US, you've got Cam Young, who's literally that's his home course. He's ready, and the rest of them all hit the ball a long way, and a very skilled golf, of course. But you look at that Europe team and you think, well, actually, these guys, a lot of them play in America now.
Yeah.
First of all, they live close. It's like a 2-hour jet for some of them, if that.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I think the margin between these two teams, Dave, is so razor thin, it might as well just be non-existent. I think, as you said, the European team is very familiar with Bethpage at this point. Even the younger guys, I'm sure, have played, before. And guys like Justin Rose and Rory, who have been around for forever, have played a number of majors and Barclays events that have been hosted at Bethpage. It's not going to be this sort of home course advantage for the US in the way courses were 20, 30, 40 years ago, for sure. I think the European familiarity with the course is going to be an equalizer. As you talked about with Dan, the hometown crowd is going to be a differentiating factor. Whether or not the Europeans take it as a frustration or as fuel is up to them. But the course itself, it's anyone's for the taking. It really is. And I think for every Rory that bombs it on the U.S. team, there's a Bryson that bombs it on the American or the European team. There's a Bryson that bombs it on the U.S. team. For every great putter like Sam Burns on the U.S., there are at least 1 or 2 putters as good on the European team. There are rookies. There are veterans like Rose and McIlroy and Rahm at this point. Basically, I think so many of the talking points we're used to talking about in Ryder Cup's past are almost moot at this point. It's like, we used to say, oh, the U.S. team has too many rookies. It's not going to, that's going to be a deficiency. It's like, well, at Marco Simone, Ludwig Oberg and Victor and Højgaard, they were all very new. This was either their first or second, and they carried the team. They were all played incredibly. I think the rookie thing is kind of overplayed at this point. And as we both said, just the talent is so squared up on both sides. I think the course is going to be ripe for both teams, and it's going to come down to just making putts and staying like mentally strong throughout every match, and not having a Mark Calcavecchia meltdown at any point. That's the danger of, or one of the dangers of match play, is when you get too comfortable with a lead and you just let it slip away. And it's, I mean, golf, we both know, is such a mental game, but man, match play, it can play some tricks on you if you get too comfortable with a lead or and let your focus slip. I'm so excited to see how, certainly the whole match, but how Friday unfolds. and see who kind of jumps out to a lead. You mentioned the U.S. team having an edge in singles over the years, and maybe that's true, but the European team has had a huge edge in foursomes over the years. Like, alternate shot has been our Achilles heel for the U.S., and I'm not sure if we've ever quite figured it out. I know, certainly at Whistling Straits, I think we played pretty well in foursomes, but overall, looking over the last 4 or 5 Ryder Cups, it's been a huge weakness. So I could easily see the Europeans, taking a lead out in those matches. So yeah, anyone who says they know for sure who's going to win and it's going to be a bloodbath one way or another is, I think, full of it. I think it's going to be very close, and it's so tough to say who's going to come out. But yeah,
absolutely. You were talking about before about with that Mark Calcavecchia situation where the captain basically just shared with him some important words, and that sort of takes us on to captains. You've obviously got Keegan sort of taking the lead this time, and I guess you could look at this both ways. Do you think he's gonna ever regret not picking himself?
Man, maybe. I'll tell you what'll soothe that regret is if he pulls out a win this week. I think he'll be fine. He'll be fine knowing he's a Ryder Cup winning captain at a course that means so much to him. As I'm sure he played. Keegan's such an unusual guy. He's one of the few professional PGA Tour players to come out of New England. Like, you look across the U.S. players of the past 25 years and beyond that have made a long career on the PGA Tour, they all come from the Southeast, Texas, or California. Very, very few players in recent years have come out of New England. Keegan grew up in Vermont, which is not a golf haven at all, but he just played so much, and he had a golf heritage in his family for sure. His dad was a professional. His aunt is Pat Bradley, is an LPGA Hall of Famer. So he had golf in his blood. And, you would think, oh, okay, he'll try to go play college golf down at Georgia or Texas or Oklahoma, one of these powerhouse programs. He goes to St. John's University in Queens, New York, which is in the greater New York City, is known in this area for having a good golf team, but no one outside of New York City really knows St. John's. It's such a unique thing for him to go there. And I think he had maybe some family connections there, and that was why he wanted. But he got there and was immediately the best player on the team. I know his college roommate a little bit. The club I grew up caddying at, Woodway Country Club in Connecticut, the head pro there for a long time was a guy named Mike Ballo. And Mike Ballo, his son, Mike Ballo Jr., went to St. John's and was Keegan's roommate. And I know Mike a little bit. He's now a head pro at a club in Greenwich and is a tremendous golfer in his own right, has won a lot of regional events. But even he has said, seeing Keegan in college, you could tell he was special and he was going to go on to the tour and to greater heights. So it's just such an interesting backstory for Keegan. But for him to come from Vermont and then play college golf in the city and then play a lot of his college golf at Bethpage, it's a testament to him that he didn't pick himself. When you flash forward, 18 years from his college days, he would have loved to play on this team, I'm sure. I'm almost a little mad at the PGA of America for offering him the captaincy a year and a half ago. I'm almost mad at them for putting him in this position when he was playing so well. Because, maybe he thought when he got this offer that, well, maybe I'm not going to make another team and maybe I should take this. Maybe it would be rude of me to spurn this opportunity. Maybe the PGA of America is going to, hold this against me if I say no and never offer it to me again. And maybe that was part of his motivation for taking it. So I certainly don't. Yeah, I have nothing but love for Keegan. I have a little bit of frustration for the PGA for kind of creating this sort of drama. I'll tell you what. 2 or 3 weeks ago, whenever he was announcing the players, I was disappointed he didn't pick himself. I think if you asked most American fans, we would have wanted to see player captain Keegan. That said, we have no idea the amount of stress he's under as a captain and the amount of responsibility he has. I think, we might all see it as sort of a figurehead position. But as we were saying earlier in the pod, like, this is not the Ryder Cup from, 50 years ago when it was kind of like, show up, have fun, go home. This is a full-time job basically for a year. And there's so much responsibility that goes into this whole week that takes months and months of preparation. So I understand why he didn't pick himself. I think at the press conference, he looked like he was in pain not picking himself. I'm sure you picked up on that. Even though I was disappointed, I just gained even more respect and admiration for him for making the mature decision. And you know what? My wish, Dave, is that obviously my wish is that he pulls out the victory as captain. And my wish after that is that he continues playing like a dominant, amazing player, and that 2 years from now, he's in the conversation for the next 2027 Ryder Cup. I think if he is within the top 18 players in the U.S. rankings, I think he's going to get a captain's pick. So that's my hope, that he still gets a happy ending as a player in 2 years. We'll see. That might be wishful thinking. But in the meantime, he has the full support of the American players and fans. And if anything, we're pulling for him and the team even more, knowing what he sacrificed to not play.
Yeah, you mentioning he looked in pain. He sort of
Yeah.
I think the statement where he just kept on repeating that he kept on repeating like the best putter in the world.
Yeah.
The best putter in the world, Sam Burns. Best putter in the world. It's almost like he had to convince me. I mean, Sam Burns is a fantastic putter, but you know, he almost had to keep repeating that he's the best putter in the world. And that's why he's taking him. That's why I'm not going. It's all going to be okay. Everyone's all right.
It's so true. He said that, and the other phrase he kept saying was, "You just can't leave him at home. You don't leave Patrick Cantlay at home. You don't leave Ben Griffin has earned this. You can't leave Ben at home." I was like, I don't know. You can maybe leave one of those guys.
Yeah. He's like, I've really, really thought about it, and I can't leave him at home. I can't. It was such a, like you said, it's such a horrible situation to be put in.
Yeah.
And then I think I can understand from the US standpoint that looking at it, you want Keegan on your team. He would bring the fire. You know, you can imagine, you know, almost like the body blows of having someone like Bryson go out, and the way that he's gonna really spur up the crowd, and then you follow it with Keegan, you know, straight afterwards. It would feel like a double body blow to to Europe to have the crowds rallied up. Is Patrick Cantlay gonna do that? No, probably not. You know, he's not interested really in that. He gets a bad rap, of course he does, because he's not bothered about that side of things. But then you've got enough in there. I mean, I think we may see a smile from Cam Young this week.
I think so. I think we're going to see more emotion from Cam Young than we've ever seen this, for sure. There are going to be some fist pumps. There's going to be some. Yeah, he is a reserved guy. I know, like Dan knows him much better than I do. I've met Cam a few times. We're both Wake Forest alums. The only difference is he's one of the greatest golfers in the world, and I was not allowed anywhere near the on-campus golf facility. But I love Cam, and I do think we're going to see some emotion from him this week for sure. Yeah.
We spoke about it. That he gets a very unfair thing just because he plays golf and goes home. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just because we see the likes of your Rorys and even your idyllic sort of characters like your Scotties, and they're larger than life and all these other things. But it doesn't mean that everyone has to be that at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're as a captain, you're kind of looking to. I feel like you're trying to put together like a stable of different players that can complement each other. Yeah, they can't all be the same sort of archetype of player for sure. You got to have guys that complement each other, bring different things. Yeah, no one's looking Cantlay's way to bring the energy. They're looking for him to make bombs and birdies, and you just put points up on the board. Like, yeah, that's fine.
Other than if he doesn't wear his hat, and then it's all gonna start again.
I saw a picture this morning on Twitter of him wearing the hat, so hopefully Hatgate has been retired.
That all stemmed from that he was going to, was it his wedding? Was straight after the Ryder Cup last time, and he just didn't want the tan lines. I mean,
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair. Yeah, we can believe that, or could it be the money thing? We don't know.
Don't get me started. I'm still disappointed about the money thing, that the U.S. is doing the whole stipend, and you know, they've done the charity thing for years. That's great. I think both teams have done that for years, but now each player on the U.S. team is getting a stipend of some kind, and I'm like, it. I don't know. As an American, look, I'm a capitalist as much as the next American, but it taints the exhibition, playing for your country element of it a little bit. But anyway, we don't have to dive too far into that. But yeah,
it's you're absolutely right. When you consider the amount that it actually is, it doesn't mean a huge amount to these guys.
Right.
And I mean, maybe to be honest, most of it probably just will cover the costs of having family come in to watch the event. It is what it is. It's modern. Yeah. It's modern sort of stuff, isn't it? Really, which is sort of a bit unnecessary. But moving on to Luke Donald, because we've spoken obviously a lot about Keegan, and Luke Donald sort of established himself. He was obviously an unbelievable pro, number one in the world without even winning a tour, PGA Tour event at the time, was it? Which showed that he was Mr. Consistent, Mr. Reliable. I remember watching him when I was younger, and he was something to sort of, not a massive guy, didn't hit the ball like such a long way, but he was he was just an unbelievable ball striker,
Hmm.
with all aspects of his game pretty much aligned, so he could just play consistent golf. And he's sort of
Yeah.
taken those qualities into his captaincy as well. He's not really looking to set the world alight. He's not changed everything that Team Europe does, but it
Yeah.
almost seems like he's drawn on the past to sort of help unite the team.
Yeah.
And obviously him being called out for the end of obviously Marcus Simone of like 2 more years, and it happened.
Yeah.
The players spoke, the crowd spoke, and it happens. So I'm going to put this to you: if we do the unthinkable, if Team Europe comes and wins at Bethpage,
Yeah.
would do you think there'll be another chance for 2 more years? And has that ever happened? Has there ever been 3 on a bounce as a captain?
There has not been 3 in a row in the modern era since '79. Before that, in the first sort of, first 2 chapters of the Ryder Cup, there were a few captains, including, I think, especially on the Great Britain and Ireland side. I can't remember the name, but there was at least 1 or 2 captains that did it 3 to 5 times in a row. Like, it was,
Right.
yeah, again, this is back when it was just sort of a friendly exhibition. And, the captain's duties was, a 2 to 3 week affair probably, and not a year-long process like it is today. My goodness, if the Euros win at Bethpage, if I'm Luke Donald, I retire then and there. Like, I
Yeah,
don't.
you can't get
I
better.
think
Yeah.
you've won at home, you've won away. That I think you could only hurt your legacy by
Yeah.
by taking the risk of going back and losing. What is it? It's at Adair Manor in 2 years,
Adair
I think.
Manor, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, to be the first European captain to lose to the Americans on European soil in what's it been 20 plus years, he doesn't want that. If I'm Luke Donald, I try my best to go back to back, and then I would hang it up and pass it on to whoever's next in line. I think, guys like Justin Rose and I'm sure we could think about who else would be coming up
I mean,
in line.
Sergio, if we could
Oh
just
yeah,
get
Sergio.
the whole live
Oh yeah,
thing sorted, and
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, but to your point, I think the second greatest honor you can be asked for in golf, in professional golf, is to be asked to be the Ryder Cup captain. The greatest honor is to be asked back to back, as he's been. To have that amount of confidence put in you by your fans, your players, all the administrators on the European tour. I think that's the greatest honor, is to say, like, hey, we don't even if you don't win again, like, we had such amazing results and team cohesion. Let's run it back in 2 years. So yeah, as an American, nothing but respect for Luke Donald. I think you would, if you polled most American fans, we would feel the same way. Yeah, I put him in the same bucket in my mind as like Justin Rose. We're just all class, just incredible player. Ascended to the top of the world game, certainly the PGA Tour game. Maybe didn't quite get the major he deserved or he should have had, but is still just an all-time European great. And I'm honestly happy he got asked back. I think him and Keegan being buddies and contemporaries the way they are, I think adds some fuel to the tension and the rivalry. I would be beyond impressed if he is able to march into Bethpage and win for the second time in a row, especially in what is going to be maybe the most hostile crowd environment of any Ryder Cup ever. So he will achieve legendary status if he pulls out the victory. And I don't know what more he could want beyond that, but yeah.
yeah. I think you're right. I think it'll be very difficult for him. I mean, it's going to be difficult in itself really to create the same atmosphere, because obviously you've basically got the same team and you just swapped out a twin.
Yeah.
So, if we took the DNA, everyone's exactly the same.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be very difficult to create. You know what it's like. When you go on a great holiday, and you go, that was amazing. We should definitely go back there.
Yeah.
And then you go back, and it's not the same.
The magic's gone. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's going to be very difficult for these players. Obviously, you're changing the scenario, the situation, everything like that. So it takes away some of the duplication of the whole event. But to talk to what he did last time with obviously the family videos that they all spoke about, and how that, just made them cry. There's so many tears before the first ball was hit from the Europe side last time.
Yep.
To try and do those things again, it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
And no one's really talking about that too much. We're all
Yeah,
just
that's a good point.
guaranteeing that the same atmosphere is going to be there, but it's very difficult to recreate a sort of fresh atmosphere that conjures up the same emotions. It's going to be tough, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. You gotta let the next captain in line come up and do his own take on that,
Yeah.
to keep it fresh. I think, yeah, feel like that'd be a very difficult thing to try to reinvent for the same captain every 2 years. And yeah, that's a good point. I think that's even more reason to sort of pass it off. And the European team has created a great blueprint the past 20 years of getting the vice captains heavily involved as sort of a pipeline to the captaincy, during every Ryder Cup. And there's, yeah, beyond Sergio, Justin Rose, and I'm sure there's a number of other like really, worthy names that are probably in line to succeed Luke. So I I'm almost as from being on the other side of it, I'm like annoyed that Luke Donald is back helming basically the same team. And like yeah, he's so good as a captain and as a leader, and these guys are going to go to bat for him. I truly, as an American, I wish the European Tour had picked someone else, but as soon as I saw them do it, I was like, darn it, we gotta beat this guy again, so it'll be tough. Yeah.
Yeah, looking at vice captains, I guess you've got like Francesco Molinari. You've got the
Yep.
Molinari brothers, haven't you, that
Warner
you could
Brothers.
potentially pick from. Alex
Yep.
Noren, obviously, has
Yep.
sort of become. So yeah, difficult to say. I mean, you look down the line. I mean, you even look at Bethpage, and obviously, I think everyone's, and Dan was sort of alluding to it as well. Everyone's hope was that Tiger was going to be
Ugh.
captain at Bethpage. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that would have been unbelievable if you had Tiger. If you had Tiger Sergio.
Oh my goodness! If Liv had never happened, there's a timeline that exists where it was either Tiger Sergio or Mickelson Sergio.
The multiverse.
Yeah, the multiverse. Sure. Like I like reach out and try to grab that timeline. I wish we could be living in it right now. One more reason to blame Greg Norman for ruining things. But
Yes, yeah. He's just rubbing his hands together somewhere, just so happy it didn't happen.
it's like, when's the next President's Cup? It's like, no one cares, Greg. Yeah. Oh man, that would have been so great. But it's all right. This is still going to be a great
This
sort
is
of rivalry.
exactly, and Tiger's got to be there, hasn't he? He's got to be on the property somewhere.
Think he would be like, yeah. I mean, if he can take the time to go out and watch, Charlie play in junior tour events, I think he can take the time out to go and watch the guys at Bethpage. Like he's not a vice captain, so he's got no responsibility. He could just, go give a pep talk in the team room and then just watch from a box or from a cart.
He didn't even take just the time out to watch Charlie. He looked ready to step in.
Yeah.
If there was a moment, if someone got pulled up with an injury, Tiger was full Sunday red, just ready to go.
Sunday red. No, it's so true, man. I hope he's there. Even just his presence at any event, sends electricity through the crowd and for everyone on site. So yeah,
he's going to come out in full sort of Team USA Ralph Lauren gear, just ready to go.
Oh, that would be just if he came out on the first tee and just tried to pump up the crowd before the actual announcements were made. My goodness, what a way to
get hit a couple of drives. Just let him do it. Just see it.
An honorary, honorary starter, Tiger, and I don't know, someone else. Yeah, that would be amazing. But that would be. Oh, I hope so.
It would be great. I mean, you look at like you said, you look at those future captain options. If we can sort out this sort of live mess that's there, I mean, you got Phil, Tiger, Sergio. There's just
so many great European. Henrik Stenson, Paul Casey,
Ian Poulter.
Oh my goodness! Like imagine a Mickelson Poulter at Bethpage. Like that would have been incredible. But yeah, I hope that the global golf game can get figured out in order to get those guys in the captaincy pipeline at some point. But I don't know. It's we'll see.
Do we know where it's going after Adair Manor? Do we know where it?
Great question. I
should probably know this, and
I should have checked as well. Yeah. So it'll be 2029.
Yeah. I don't know how far in advance they do these.
Oh yeah, back to Hazeltine in 29.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be in Spain in 2031 at Costa Brava.
Okay.
Or in Costa Brava at Camarol. And then the Olympic Club in 2033. That's going to be pretty special. And Congressional in 2037. So basically several courses that have either hosted Ryder Cups, US Opens, or PGA Championships. So we're in very good hands.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. I was waiting to hear like a Pebble in there at some point. I mean,
It's funny. I don't think Pebbles hosted the Ryder Cup. Maybe it has once, but yeah, it's kind of been grandfathered in as a U.S. Open and occasionally as a USAM or Walker Cup. I
Mm,
think it's done Walker Cup before. But yeah, it's kind of, there's a bit of a turf war between the USGA and the PGA of America. There's, healthy relationship between them there for sure, but they each have kind of their own stable of courses that they've stuck their flags in, no pun intended.
mm,
So Hazeltine, past Ryder Cup, Olympic, well, past U.S. Open and PGA, but I think it's more of a PGA course now. And then Congressional, I don't think the USGA wants to go back to Congressional for U.S. Open anytime soon because it's in Washington, D.C., and the U.S. Open is
mm.
always played in the dead of summer when it's 100-degree heat and 100% humidity. So that's a tough U.S. Open course. So yeah, either way, it'll be, those are all major championship venues and all fantastic match play courses. So
Yeah,
no, yeah, no shortage of great courses. Yeah.
there's some excitement to come, which is good. So, last thing,
Yeah.
Dave. What's your predictions as best as you can? With this sort of thing. Do you think it is going to come down to the last few matches on the last day, or do you expect that there's going to be some breathing room for either side? Just interrupting the episode briefly to talk to you all about the wonderful, wonderful company that is Golf Escapes. Now, I'm looking forward to a visit that I booked in with Golf Escapes next weekend to the beautiful East Sussex National, and I can't wait to get there. Can't wait to play the West course, which is a beautiful course that maybe doesn't get as much attention as it deserves. I can't wait to enjoy the spa facilities with my wife, who will definitely not be joining me on the golf course. Maybe she will, but she probably won't. And the reason being is because there's so much to do there that doesn't involve, one, me, and two, golf. Because it isn't for everybody. I know that's hard to hear, but it's not. So go and book a Golf Escape for yourself, whether that be in the UK, abroad, all over the place. Golf Escapes have got you covered. And if you use code Birdie Double Points at checkout, that's Birdie Double Points at checkout, you'll earn double escape points. And those escape points you can use towards your next booking for money off. So go and check them out. There's some amazing offers on their website right now. As the weather in the UK turns, maybe it's too hot where you are listening to this podcast. People listen in 35 countries. So maybe it's too hot. Maybe there's no golf around. Who knows? Go to Golf Escapes. Find your ideal golf escape and book it now and use code Birdie Double Points for double escape points.
I think the former. I think it's going to be very close and come down to the last few matches. And I'm trying to say that from an objective point of view and not just what I selfishly hope happens. But I really do think, like we were saying before, that the talent level is so close on both these teams, and the desire and the passion, I think, is going to be very, very sort of mirrored between both teams. I just have a tough time, especially at Bethpage, seeing either team mounting like a 4 or 5 point lead going into Sunday. I think it's going to be, maybe a 2 to 2.5 point lead at the most going into Sunday. But, I'm willing to be proven wrong, but I hope I'm not. I hope it is exciting all the way to the end. I certainly am predicting a U.S. victory, but if you guys win, I will not be even remotely shocked. I think you've had so much success on U.S. soil the past 20 years. Like I said, the home course advantage is gone. It's the home crowd advantage that might make a difference, but you've got so much talent that it might not even make that much of a difference. So we'll see, man. I hope it's a roller coaster all the way to the end. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a great watch. Yeah, I think it is going to be. It's difficult because you want it so much to be a tight thing. You can't sort of see past that, can you? Sort of blinded by it almost.
Yeah.
I think it really does come down to the Friday. Again, I think similar to what happened last time. I think if Team USA come out and take that sort of New York advantage and run with it, I think it becomes a very difficult proposition to claw back over the rest of the weekend. I think it builds and snowballs and becomes tough. And, I think if Bryson goes out first and sort of whips the crowd into a frenzy by sort of just smashing drive, Dan did say he's going to really need some wind at his back probably to get there. But at the same time, Bryson with a ton of adrenaline running through his veins and just, smashing it. Who knows?
Yeah.
You could he can get a 380, 380, 390 out there, no problem. He
Yeah.
can do it.
He's gonna be on the range beforehand with his headphones on, just
Yeah,
mashing balls and trying to get that adrenaline up. He's gonna come out like a bull in an arena who just sees
yeah,
red. It's gonna
yeah.
be great.
He's gonna have the old school. He's gonna have like Justin James out there with him, just
Yeah,
smashing drives out.
yeah,
I was gonna say
exactly.
Martin Borgmeyer, but I think Martin Borgmeyer will probably have vested interests sort of
Yeah,
elsewhere,
yeah,
probably.
probably.
But I think that becomes difficult. I think momentum becomes very difficult. I think that's what separates these sort of like home wins that happen in the Ryder Cup is
Yeah,
momentum builds, and it's so tough to break it down. I think that's what made
yeah,
Medina so special, that momentum
yeah,
got broken down, right? And it just,
yeah,
that's what's going to need to happen. You're going to have to try and cause issues there, which I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I think,
yeah,
like you said, I think the repetition of the team is interesting because no one really had a bad outing last time. I think Bobby Mack probably had the most difficult time when it
yeah,
came to
yeah,
his matches, but he's a different proposition now. He's
yeah.
played in America.
So good.
He's is he the only lefty?
Yeah, I think so. On the European team, I think. I don't
Who
know
have
if
we
there's
got
any left.
on
Yeah,
the
actually,
US? Is there
yeah.
anybody?
Brian Hartman is the only lefty that was in contention. He's not on the team, so yeah.
Yeah.
Brian Hartman, yeah. So yeah, I think Bob's the only lefty. Yeah,
So there you go.
yeah.
Could that be something?
Yeah, it's dude. I think it's just it's so razor thin. I cannot wait for the action to start. Ugh, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I just need to see Bobby Mack doing a slight sort of Phil smile at the crowd, just sort of
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little,
Hey guys, yeah.
yeah, just a little one of those, just let them know what they're
I
in
mean,
for.
he's so likable. Like a lot of the European players I think, are very likable. Bob Mack more than maybe any of them.
Yeah,
I just the few times he's won and he gets so emotional and is just such a likable guy. Yeah, he's great. Yeah, I'll
yeah,
rooting for my team, but I hope he does well. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's gonna be great, and
yeah,
I'll be watching it from home. You'll be watching it from home. Most of the listeners will be most likely watching it from home, which let's be honest, is probably one of the best ways to actually enjoy all the action.
it is. I want to go in person once in my life, but it's not something I ever need to do more than once. I think the telecast is so well produced and
Mm.
is keeps you more in touch with what's happening. It's the best to watch from home for sure.
Absolutely. I've got some issues. I've got Legoland with my kids,
Oh, I heard.
um,
Yeah.
which is actually
Yeah.
Saturday, Sunday, but I am saved by the time difference. So
Okay, good. Good.
I think it's going to work out fine. I get all of
Yeah.
Friday, which is the
Mhm.
anticipation day, let's face it. And Saturday can be a little bit, depending on how it goes, it tends to even out on the Saturday.
Yeah.
So I'll miss the morning session, I'll catch up on the evening. And then
That's
Sunday, I should get home in time for the full singles, I think.
that's awesome.
I
That's
think.
awesome. Just let your wife know how important this day is to you. And we just gotta,
Yeah,
schedule
it's like,
Legoland.
look, we've seen all the Lego. They're not
Yeah.
that much different. Sure, the
Yeah.
kids are enjoying it, but I need to get home. I'm sure
Yeah.
that will go down great.
It'll be fine. It'll be totally fine. Let me know how that goes. I actually am going on a golf trip this upcoming weekend, so I'm going to be playing a lot of golf this weekend, which is fun. But we're going to need to have the Ryder Cup playing on our phones while we're out on the course, I think, because
Yeah,
otherwise I'm going to miss a lot of it. But the golf trip's over on Saturday, so I'll see most of the Sunday singles. But Friday, Saturday are going to need a lot of watching on my phone, I think. But yeah.
where you heading to, Dave? Anyone else?
So there's a place out in Wisconsin called Sand Valley. Have you heard of it?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's only about 5 or 6 years old. I think it's by the same guy who did either Abandoned Dunes or Whistling Straits. I can't
Mhm.
remember, but he's a big, wealthy golf developer who bought several hundred acres of land in the middle of Wisconsin's sort of sand belt area and has built 4 or 5 courses there at this point. 2 of them are already ranked in the top 100 or top 150 in the country. They're just these incredible, incredible courses. There's Sand Valley, Sedge Valley, Mammoth Dunes, and the Lido. Those are the 4 main
Right.
18-hole courses. And we're playing 3 of those 4. And we're also playing Erin Hills down the road in Wisconsin, where the U.S. Open was that Brooks Koepka won in 2016. So we're playing
Amazing.
Dude, we're playing 5 rounds in 2.5 days. We're doing 18, 36, 36. This is the most amount of golf I've ever played in my life. No golf carts. We're walking every hole,
Hmm.
every match. It's gonna be a 5 match, or a mini Ryder Cup of our own. We're going eight guys out there. It's gonna be a blast. I'm very excited. So trying to get my game in shape for to take them down. Yeah.
Is the game trending how you want it to be?
It's trending better. I mean, my handicap ballooned to a number that I won't mention on this, but over the last 2 months, I've played more golf the last 2, 3 months than I have in the last 3 years, and I've got my handicap down like 4.5 strokes just in 2.5 months time, to a moderately respectable number. So I'm still probably the highest handicapper in the group, though. There's one guy that's scratch, another guy, two or three guys that are single digits, and then the rest of us are in the teens somewhere. And I
Hmm.
think I'm coming in hot at like a 19 probably. So
Oh,
I'm a
that's
bogey
awesome
golfer,
though.
but yeah,
That's what
that's
you want for those trips. You want that.
exactly, yeah. I couldn't show up with a 20 plus handicap. I just couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it.
I don't want to be the guy that's getting the most strokes and everyone's like, "Oh, come on. This guy ruined the fun for the rest of us." So, got to doubt as low as I could, but I'm so excited. It's everyone I've spoken to that's gone and played these courses say they're just incredible. So,
Yeah, that sounds amazing. What's the one? Did
yeah.
that same guy do? Is it the Scarecrow and stuff like that as well? That's just I don't know if that's the same
Possibly.
architect.
It could be. I'm not sure where that one is, but it might be the same developer. There are a
Yeah.
few big sort of names that are building all these resort style courses. That's essentially what Sand Valley is. It's like the same model as like Pinehurst that down the road from me in North Carolina in
Hmm.
Pinehurst, where they have I think 11 courses and they're building 2 or 3 more. This guy is basically developing his own Pinehurst in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. Yet they have
Awesome.
so much more land too to build more courses. And it's the old saying, build it and they will come. And people are traveling from all over the country and all over the world to the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, to play these courses. So it's going to be great. I'll let you know afterwards, but I'm very excited. Yeah,
Yeah, please do, Dave. Sounds awesome. I hope you enjoy it. Hope you play some good golf as well, because I know
I hope
that
so too.
you're just a
I hope
golf
so too.
fiend. So you're just gonna be desperate to just have that
I'm
moment, you know.
Yeah, and to be playing in a like a small buddies match while the Ryder Cup is happening in the background
Oh,
is like I think that's the adrenaline that's going to get me through playing 5 rounds in 2.5 days.
yeah,
I'm very
absolutely.
excited. Very
And you get
excited.
back in the evening and catch up with all the highlights and everything, which is gonna be awesome.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, can't wait. Can't wait, man.
but Dave, I appreciate your time so much.
Of course, Dave. Always love talking golf and talking international golf, especially. And there's no better golf international event than the Ryder Cup, man. So appreciate you having me on.
No, absolutely, Dave. No problem at all. Everyone go and check out Dave. Handsome Squire makes the best
Yep.
yardage book and scorecard holders in the game with leather from Milan as well. So it
Yep.
is
Italian
ultimate.
leather, man.
There's
Yep.
mine just right
Ah,
there in shot. That's
got one
there.
mine right
There's
here.
Dave's just there.
Right. Yep.
So just, yeah, unbelievable. Thank you so much, Dave. I
Thank you, Dave.
appreciate
Appreciate
you
it, my
very
friend.
much. And enjoy it. I hope you enjoy
Thank
it.
you.
I'm
You
going
as
to
well.
enjoy Legoland. You're going to
Yeah.
enjoy
You enjoy Legoland. I'll
golf.
enjoy golf. We'll compare notes afterwards.
Seems unfair, doesn't it?
Sorry, buddy.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. Swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.